the possibility of more warfare between Israel and Hamas, and it is growing, with both sides accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. It comes as Turkey is pushing to join the international force in Gaza. And a different kind of battle, as Christian leaders returning from Israel say they're the target of online attacks. Paul Petite brings us the story now. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
Turkey is pushing to join the international force tasked with stabilizing Gaza, directly challenging Israel's opposition. Ankara claims Turkish participation is critical to upholding the ceasefire. Israel says Turkey supports Hamas. The latest development comes as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz makes his first visit to Israel, meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to advance President Trump's Gaza peace plan. But Hamas now says that plan cannot move into the second phase, accusing Israel of violations. That phase includes deploying an international military force in Gaza and the disarmament of Hamas, which the terror group resists. Israel accuses Hamas of violating the ceasefire with its continuing attacks on troops and its failure to deliver the last remaining hostage body. Netanyahu expects the second and third phase negotiations to be equally challenging.
I think there's a third phase, which is to de-radicalize the Gazan population from 60 years of incredible incitement, incredible brainwashing, which has has to be changed. But the first phase is you've got to get rid of Hamas.
Netanyahu also says he plans to visit New York City later this month, despite threats of arrest by the city's incoming mayor, Zoran Mamdani.
I'll come to New York, okay?
And that was my question. Would you come to New York, given what the mayor has said about arresting you?
Yes, of course I will.
And you will test that? I mean, what is the thought about how that would work?
Well, why don't you wait and see? Yes, I'll come to New York.
Another controversy is emerging: online attacks against Christian leaders who attended last week's Friends of Zion Ambassadors Summit in Israel. Founder Mike Evans says pastors and ministry leaders are targeted by coordinated AI-driven harassment and anti-Semitism.
They think they're real people. They're not real people. They're bots, but they achieve the same objective. They shut them up by marginalizing them.
What's the end game for these bots, this attack?
The same end game as 911. Listen, the terrorists kill the body. These individuals kill the soul. So it's exactly the same. It's Satan's come to kill, steal, and to destroy.
Despite the attacks, Evans says they're moving forward with even more ambitious plans for next year.
I'm planning on bringing 1,000 university students, young people like that are involved in Turning Point USA, leaders on campuses. I'm planning on bringing 1,000 of them in July, and then I'm planning on bringing 1,000 of the top pastors globally at the end of August.
Paul Petite, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Going to continue our coverage now with our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, who's joining us from Jerusalem. So, Chris, Israel and Hamas are accusing each other of violating the ceasefire, and Netanyahu says Hamas needs to be gotten rid of in the first phase. How would that happen short of more warfare between Israel and Hamas?
Well, the warfare seems inevitable, Ephraim. The Trump plan, disarm Hamas. On the other hand, Hamas statements are no disarmament. Khaled Mashal, one of the leaders of Hamas, says they won't relinquish control. He's saying yes to the annihilation of Israel, yes to the liberation of Jerusalem. One thing he says, they want to cleanse Al-Aqsa, that's the mosque on the Temple Mount, from impure Jews. They won't accept any international authority. And here's what he said 20 years ago, Ephraim, and I found this headline. It says, Mashal pull out his beginning of the end of Israel. To give you a little context, 20 years ago, Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip. It's really led to October 7th and the war. He says it's just one step to defeating Israel. So the confrontation seems inevitable. What could change this? Pressure from Qatar and Turkey that would actually allow Hamas to keep its weapons. But Israel's resisting this. And that's certainly likely one of the subjects of the meetings later this month between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump.
Chris, the New York Post reports a Palestinian anti-Hamas activist claims Hamas hid tons of baby formula to damage Israel with claims of starvation. What can you tell us about this?
Well, it was this anti-Hamas activist. He accused the group of hoarding the food. He shared footage and pictures on social media that Hamas was deliberately hiding literally tons of infant formula and nutritional shakes for children. And why? The reason is to allow the children in Gaza to starve and then blame Israel for a famine. This is something they purposely did to starve the children of Gaza. So it wasn't Israel, after all, after these weeks and months of accusations of famine and genocide and starvation. What we see right now undermines that campaign by Hamas that had waged within the international media and social media for months. So this is something that's coming out now after those accusations, and I assume we may be seeing more evidence of what Hamas did during that time to keep food away from the people of Gaza in order to blame Israel and win the propaganda war.
Israel's finance minister told the Jewish News Syndicate the IDF is likely to step up operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah. What is the situation there?
Well, Ephraim, it's very uneasy. There's been an uneasy ceasefire since November of 2024. That's when the ceasefire began. Almost immediately, Hezbollah began rearming. Almost immediately, Israel began daily attacks to prevent that rearming by Hezbollah and represent one more existential threat on Israel's northern border. So there have been daily attacks by Israel. Finance Minister Smotrich, he says it's likely that Israel will soon need to return to Lebanon in a massive way and to preserve the gains against Hezbollah that had been going on since the war with Hezbollah. You know, that famous or infamous attack by the beepers and the pagers against Hamas operatives, in eliminating much of the leadership of Hezbollah, including Hassan Nasrallah. And so they want to enforce without any compromise against Hezbollah rearming and any ceasefire. The residents, he says, of northern Israel, they deserve to live in security. And also, Ephraim, this represents somewhat of a change in policy by Israel. They want to be proactive to eliminate any threats, whether it's in Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis, and not repeat the mistakes of the past 20 years when many times they just allowed their enemies to rearm, regroup, and pose severe and sometimes existential threats to the Jewish state.
We heard a little bit of this in Paul's report, but what have you learned about these online attacks against pastors who visited Israel last week?
Well, it was a coordinated attack, and there were identical hostile messages to these pastors. They were carefully crafted accusations. They accused Israel of genocide. They were demeaning and coming against, many of these pastors. They branded Prime Minister Netanyahu a war criminal. There were anti-Semitic claims. Also, Fox News' Mark Levin entered the fray. He said he was angry about the efforts to punish the Christian supporters of Israel. As Mike Evans said in Paul's report, may have been AI-driven bots by a country like Qatar. And also, Ambassador Mike Huckabee may be recording a video sending directly to the pastors, and really a sign of what may happen to people that stand with Israel. But Mike Evans said there'll be no coordinated digital campaign that's going to silence those who stand for the truth.
The Israeli foreign minister told another delegation of evangelical leaders that evangelical support is, quote, more vital than ever. What can you tell us about the Israel's government's recognition of the importance of the support of Christians in this hour?
Well, he spoke to a group by Bishop Robert Stearns of Eagle's Wings. They consider Christian support a bulwark against misinformation, disinformation, the rise of global anti-Semitism. Many people believe it's a pivotal moment in history where the Jewish state is defending its place in the world, and they see Christian evangelical support as vital to that effort.